Welcome everybody to this edition of Attention Talk Video. I'm your host, ADHD and Attention Coach Jeff Copper. And today I'm going to make an attempt to do a little attention exercise for everybody to help people begin to understand the difference between what I call methodical thinking and insightful thinking. They're two very different thinking processes, and what I hope to do is use some illustrations today so that you can kind of help witness the differences in your mind and then kind of begin to understand what an aha is really all about and what insight really is, which is very much about what we are about at Attention Talk Video, and me as an individual coach, but also to begin to explain some of the challenges that people with ADHD have and to understand the process of what's going on. Often I find that if people can understand something, they can see it, they can make a little bit of sense of it. So that's what we're going to attempt to do today. It's going to be a little bit longer video than normal, but I really hope that you're going to get something out of it. The first thing that I'm going to do is I really want to illustrate what I call the methodical thinking process. And we're going to use a simple algebra problem to do that. The key with methodical is it's very rote, it's step-oriented, and it's just a 1, 2, 3, 4 type thing. So just give me a second, we'll come back and we'll illustrate it. So to begin with, I want to illustrate what I call the methodical thinking process, and we're going to do that and illustrate that by using a simple algebraic problem. And what we basically have is 2 in parentheses 8 plus x in parentheses plus 5x equals 32 minus x. Now, as we go through this process of solving this problem, I want you to understand is that we're going to go through some basic steps. If you understand addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, it's relatively simple to get to the end of the problem. So real quickly, we're going to solve for what's in the parentheses. So 2 times 8 is 16, plus 2 times x is 2x, plus 5x equals 32 minus x. Pretty simple. Now we're going to simplify this by adding the 2 x's together. So we have 16 plus 7x equals 32 minus x. Again, we've shortened the problem. We're 2 steps into it so far. At the end of the day, we are starting again with another algebra problem like we did up here. We're just further down the process. So if we subtract 16 from each side, we end up with 7x equals 16 minus x. If we add x to both sides, we get 8x equals 16. And if we divide by 2 on both sides, we get x equals, we're going to divide by 8. Sorry about that. We get x equals 2. Now, simple algebraic problem. What I'd like to highlight in this thing is that we have a finite number of steps. We were able to get to the answer predictably, without trial and error. This is what I call methodical thinking process, and it's really what we like in our world because we like to go 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the recipe. This is actually how you solve this problem, and it's very important in math and everything else, but this is a very, very specific thinking process. And again, the keys to it is if you understand mathematics, the order of operations, the rules, you can solve a problem first time, every time, without any trial error. Sometimes you can switch steps. I could have made some adjustments here and subtracted or added x instead of subtracting 16, so I can move some steps around, but the bottom line, it's relatively the same number of steps, and it's a very methodical process. I'd like to illustrate what I call the insightful thinking process. What I have on the board is I've got 9, 9, 9, 9, an equal sign, and 100. And the problem that I'm going to ask you to solve here is you can use addition and subtraction, multiplication and division, and you can use parentheses, the order of operations in the situation. But the idea is to arrange those variables however you want to so that these 9s actually equal 100. So I could put a plus sign in here or parentheses or divide or whatever we want. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause here for a second and let you look at the board and let you try to solve this a little bit on your own, and then I'm going to come back and we'll see the process of insightful thinking. Okay. Here's what I want you to kind of pay attention to. Now, I want you to focus in on the process here. Everybody thinks a little bit differently, but I want to kind of illustrate a common, when I ask people how they're solving the problem, this is very common what they do. They'll take 9 times 9, which equals 81, plus 9, which is 90, plus 9 is 99. And they go, that doesn't work. Step 1, or trial 1. Then they'll go 9 plus 9, that's 18, times 9, and they'll realize that that's going to be like well over 200, and so they'll ditch that. Then they might go 9 plus 9 plus 9, which is 27, times 9, and they realize that's going to blow way over 100 as well. And then they'll go 9 plus 9, oops, my writing's not very good, plus 9, that's 36. That doesn't do any good. They'll actually go through a couple different permutations of this. What I want you to recognize in this is that this was a trial. I paid attention to it this way, and it didn't work. Then they paid attention to it this way, and it didn't work. And this way, and we could kind of go on really for a very long period of time. This is the insightful thinking process. It's a trial and error process that one goes through to try to solve this problem. And what I would like to really illustrate here is that sometimes you get into this thinking methodology and you go and you're not really kind of solving a problem, but insightful problems are they're solved by the sudden comprehension that takes place when you pay attention to something differently. It's the aha, it's the eureka, it's the I get it. It is the effect of what creativity really is all about. And sometimes a lot of problem solving, it's really the holy grail. And so when we look at this problem, we have a belief system and we're locked into seeing it a certain way. And oftentimes that little aha really changes the difference. So what I'm going to show you is this problem that I'm giving you was actually a 5th grade extra credit math problem that my son did when he was in 5th grade. And it's funny because my father was a math major. My brother got his PhD in mechanical engineering. My son's mother got a math degree, and he was able to solve this in, I think, 15 minutes, whereas it took days, and all the mathematicians couldn't really do it. But the trick of really this here is really the insight of knowing is that I said that you can do anything that you want, but if you just simply put this, which is you can actually leave the 2 9s together, that being 99, plus 9 divided by 9, which is 1, equals 100. My point in this really is it's not until you have the aha, the creativity is I can leave these 2 9s together that you can actually kind of solve the problem. I talk a lot about an example of an insightful thinking problem, as I have described how brainstorming and stuff really kind of comes about this. And there was one time where I had a car with 200,000 miles where the leather seats were cracked and they were splitting my pants, and I needed to do something about it. But the car had 200,000 miles on it, and I was going to get rid of it relatively soon, but I still needed it to work. And I went in to price the seats to have the leather redone. It was $2,000. And the seat covers at like Discount Auto, the one size fits all just really wasn't working, and I was struggling. And one day I was explaining the problem to somebody, and they said, too bad you can't get those seats at a garage sale. And in that moment, I had a eureka. That garage sale thing sparked an idea, and that was, well, what about a junkyard? Which is interesting because in Tampa, if you Google junkyards, there's actually a couple websites where you can go in and you can put a 2003 Sequoia tan interior, and the seats cost $126. My point really is what I'm hoping that you're going to understand from insightful thinking. It's a trial and error process in order for you to solve many problems. And sometimes the best way to do that is talking with somebody by trial and error. It's that creativity where all of a sudden there's that trigger that you kind of get something. And this problem wanted to illustrate it is if a person didn't necessarily put the idea together, you could just leave 2 9s together. This is a very difficult problem to solve. Again, the idea is I hope that you understand the process. Creativity or insightful thinking is a trial and error process by definition. I work a lot with people with ADHD, and sometimes how do you speed that process up? It's really by getting in a room and brainstorming without judgment. This is actually the way as a coach, that I help people solve problems or come up with solutions and strategies that work for them. If you've seen a lot of my videos, some of the stuff is pretty crazy, but it's really using this creative process and trying to solve problems that aren't there. Or not, excuse me, tripping over my tongue. Trying to solve problems in a very creative way. The point of the video today was really to show two different thinking methodologies, the methodical thinking methodology and the insightful thinking methodology, and compare and contrast the two. I used what looked like very mathematical type things to compare and contrast them. One was solving the algebra problem, and clearly it was very easy to solve the problem in a finite number of steps. The insightful thinking problem was not. It was a trial and error process by definition, and that's what insight is. That's what creativity is. And the question is how do you come about the eureka, the aha, the I get it, the I can leave the two nines together? Well, really, it can be facilitated, but it can't necessarily be scheduled. And it's the environment that is really important. Pressure can inhibit the creativity or insightful thinking process. Other things like deadlines, which is pressure, or if you're with somebody and they're giving your opinion and telling you what you should do, that can make it more difficult. But fundamentally, I hope you begin to understand the difference in this process. And as you attack problems, the more you think this is an insightful problem and you begin to understand the nature of what that process is, the more you can manage it. As a coach, I help people deal with that every day. But we hope you've got something from this video. You've gained some insight on actually the insight process. And we encourage you to leave comments and subscribe to our channel. I think the subscribe button is right below there. Again, I'm Jeff Copper. I'm an ADHD coach and attention coach. You can learn more about me by going to digcoaching.com. Please leave comments. Please subscribe. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of Attention Talk Video. Take care.